Welcome back to my YouTube channel and thank you for joining me once again as we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, surprising discoveries, and those unbelievable stories that keep collectors, hobbyists, and everyday people excited and engaged. And today's topic might seem simple on the surface, a 2005 1-cent coin, but as you already know, in the world of numismatics, even the smallest denomination can turn into something unexpectedly valuable when errors, mistakes, and rare minting anomalies come into play, and in this video we're going to unravel the long, detailed, and captivating story behind how a 2005 1-cent coin, normally worth just a penny, can reach an astonishing value of up to $7 because of specific errors, striking mistakes, die anomalies, planchet irregularities, and fascinating minting possibilities that transform an ordinary Lincoln cent into a tiny piece of treasure hiding in everyday pockets, change jars, old drawers, and forgotten piggy banks. And as always, this deep dive will give you every detail, every nuance, and every possibility so you can understand exactly why and how certain 2005 cents gain such surprising value, what to look for when examining your own coins, and what makes these errors highly desirable among collectors who appreciate scarcity, eye appeal, mechanical oddities, and the unpredictable nature of minting technology. So let's begin by slowly unfolding the full picture of the 2005 Lincoln cent itself. A coin minted in massive quantities, over several billion pieces, meaning the vast majority are completely normal, everyday coins with no added value, but among those billions are small pockets of error coins that slip through the mint's quality control systems, some created because of aging dies, worn machinery, misaligned hubs, accidental double striking, planchet contamination, foreign metal presence, off-center pressing, die cracks, die clashes, plating bubbles, or unforeseen mechanical shifts during striking, and these rare mistakes create huge demand among collectors who know just how difficult it is to find a genuine mint error from such a heavily mass-produced year. And although a $7 valuation may not sound enormous compared to million-dollar error coins we've explored in the past, in the world of modern pocket change, a penny worth $7 represents a 700-fold increase. Something truly remarkable when you consider that most modern coins, especially post-2000 copper-plated zinc cents, rarely gain premium value unless something genuinely unusual has occurred. So let's break down the exact types of errors and mistakes that can elevate a 2005 Lincoln cent to such a surprising price and why collectors deeply care about each one, starting with off-center strikes. A common but extremely popular error type where the coin is not properly centered between the dies during striking, producing a coin with part of the design shifted, cut off, or missing. And while many off-center cents exist from various years, a clean, dramatic off-center strike from 2005, especially one that retains the full date, is highly sought after because modern minting machinery usually prevents such dramatic misalignment, meaning any surviving examples carry scarcity and visual appeal that collectors enjoy, and the more dramatic the off-center percentage, usually between 50 and 80%, the more it tends to be worth, with some reaching the $7 range depending on eye appeal, condition, and how clearly the date is visible, because without the visible date, the market typically devalues the coin. So a well-struck off-center 2005 cent with a clear date is one of the key types of errors that push a penny toward that higher valuation. But this is just the beginning, because another error that contributes significantly to the coin's worth is the die crack or die break, which occurs when the die used to strike the coins begins to fracture due to stress, metal fatigue, repeated striking, or microscopic flaws in the steel, and these fractures produce raised lines, lumps, or blobs of extra metal on the finished coin, sometimes appearing like lightning streaks, raised veins, or small bulges known as cud breaks when the die breaks near the edge. And although small die cracks exist frequently on modern coins, dramatic die cracks from 2005 can still command several dollars, especially if the crack forms a visually appealing pattern, such as extending across Lincoln's face, running behind the head, or forming a distinctive shape that collectors find interesting. And larger cuts, where an entire chunk of the die breaks off, can bring even more value. And although not every cut from 2005 will automatically reach $7, a strong cut combined with good condition and uniqueness often gets close, making this another important error that can elevate a 2005 cent from common loose change to something genuinely collectible. And moving forward, we have double dies, one of the most famous and beloved error categories in numismatic history, though genuine double-die coins have become increasingly rare in modern years due to changes in minting techniques, and while the 2005 Lincoln cent does not have any major, widely recognized double dies like the iconic 1955, 1969, or 1972 examples, minor doubling still occurs, often categorized as machine doubling or strike doubling, which is normally less impressive, but in some cases, minor hub doubling from this year has been reported where slight doubling can appear around the lettering, date, or the letters of liberty or in God we trust, and when the doubling is crisp enough to be considered true hub doubling rather than mechanical artifact, collectors will pay a premium, sometimes pushing the value into the multi-dollar range and contributing to the top tier of error coins reaching around $7, especially when combined with high-grade preservation. Lustrous surfaces, or unusual strike characteristics, and speaking of surfaces, plating errors are a huge factor with the post-1982 zinc-based pennies, which are copper-plated over a thin zinc core, and this design makes them vulnerable to issues like plating bubbles, where trapped gas between the zinc core and copper layer creates raised bumps or blister-like distortions on the surface of the coin, and while small, isolated plating bubbles are relatively common, large, dramatic bubbles, especially on the obverse side near Lincoln's face or on the reverse near the Memorial Building, can create visually striking patterns that increase a coin's desirability, sometimes forming shapes resembling continents, droplets, or abstract designs that appeal to collectors who enjoy unique visual irregularities, and when these plating bubbles occur in combination with other errors, the overall value can push the coin to that $7 benchmark, especially when the bubble is large, intact, and eye-catching. But the story continues because another rare type of error associated with 2005 cents is the lamination error, where impurities in the metal cause the surface of the coin to peel, flake, or separate in sheets, producing dramatic cracks, missing metal sections, or peeling layers that reveal the zinc beneath, and since post-1982 cents are particularly susceptible to lamination issues because the core and plating layers rely heavily on bonding integrity, lamination errors from 2005 can be dramatic and collectible, with large peeling areas being more valuable, particularly when they occur on the obverse and reveal part of Lincoln's portrait in a distorted or partially removed state, which collectors find captivating due to the unusual visual impact and rarity, and this brings us to yet another interesting error category, struck-through errors, where a foreign object or material gets trapped between the die and the coin during striking, leaving an imprint or indentation of the object on the coin's surface, and for 2005 cents, struck-through errors involving fabric fibers, metal shavings, grease, or even debris from the minting machinery can produce unique shapes and impressions, with grease-filled die errors being the most common, causing missing details on the design when parts of the die become clogged, leading to weakly struck letters, incomplete areas, or fading design elements, which collectors refer to as grease strikes, and while minor grease strikes are common and typically not very valuable, more dramatic examples that completely remove parts of the lettering or design can bring several dollars, pushing the total value closer to the $7 range when accompanied by attractive toning, high-grade surfaces, or combined with other unusual striking characteristics. And now let's explore the possibility of misaligned dies, a mechanical issue where the upper die shifts slightly off position, causing the obverse design to appear slightly rotated or off-center without affecting the reverse, which remains perfectly centered, and these misaligned die errors, especially when the shift is moderate but still visually noticeable, can attract collectors because they demonstrate a clear minting mistake while still keeping the coin structurally intact, and while minor misalignments might not be worth much, stronger misalignments from 2005 can help elevate the coin's value further, especially when combined with strong eye appeal or clean preservation. And then we have broad-struck coins, which occur when a coin is struck outside the retaining collar, causing the metal to expand outward and create a wider, flatter coin with distorted rims, and while broad-struck coins vary significantly in appearance, good examples from 2005 with bold expansion and clean detail can easily reach several dollars. Next, 2012 D1 cent USA coin. Today focus is on a coin that millions of people have held without ever realizing the secrets it might contain, the 2012 D1 cent coin, a seemingly ordinary penny minted in massive quantities at the Denver Mint but capable of reaching a surprising value of up to $6 when specific errors, minting mistakes, and rare anomalies appear on it. And in this long and detailed script, we will explore every possible error, striking flaw, metal issue, die anomaly, and structural oddity that can turn this humble 2012 D Lincoln cent into a valuable collector's piece, and we will explain exactly why these mistakes can make the coin worth big money, what collectors look for, how these errors occur, and how you can examine your own coins to determine whether you might be holding one of these surprisingly valuable pieces, because the world of error coins is vast, unpredictable, mechanically fascinating, and full of possibilities that transform everyday currency into collectible treasures. And as always, this deep dive will take you through the mechanics, physics, and intricacies behind the minting process, enabling you to fully understand how a $6 valuation becomes possible for a coin everyone else ignores. So let's begin with the 2012 D1 cent itself, a coin minted in the post-1982 zinc cord format, meaning the coin consists of a thin copper plating surrounding a zinc interior, a design that makes it lighter, more economical to produce, and more vulnerable to specific types of errors that can occur during the striking, plating, annealing, and blank preparation stages. And although billions of these coins were produced, only a tiny fraction contain genuine mint errors that create the premium value sought by collectors, and these errors fall into several large categories including planchet errors, die errors, striking errors, plating issues, machine anomalies, and unexpected environmental or factory-induced irregularities that occur before the coin enters circulation, and understanding these categories is the key to unlocking why some 2012 D cents jump in value to $6. So let's begin with one of the most common and popular categories, off-center strikes, which occur when the planchet fails to align correctly between the obverse and reverse dies during pressing, causing the strike to land partially off the coin's surface, producing a final coin that looks shifted, partially blank, or incomplete. And although off-center errors occur across many years, dramatic off-center examples from 2012 D that preserve the date are sought after because collectors need the date to authenticate the error and include it in year-specific collections, and when the off-center percentage exceeds about 30%, and especially when it reaches 50% or more, the value climbs, sometimes reaching $6 or slightly more depending on condition, visual symmetry, and how cleanly the misalignment appears. But this is only one type of error that elevates the value of the 2012 D cent, because next we have die cracks and die breaks, errors resulting from the die, the metal tool used to strike the coin, developing fractures due to repeated high-pressure use, stress, metal fatigue, or imperfections in the die steel itself, and when cracks form on the die, the coins struck with that damaged die begin to show raised lines or raised blobs of metal where the die no longer imprints the design correctly, and these cracks can appear anywhere, across Lincoln's head, through the date, near the rim, around the lettering, or across the reverse, and the more dramatic the crack, the more collectible the coin becomes, especially when the crack evolves into a full die break, known as a cud, where part of the die near the edge completely breaks off, leaving a large, raised blob of metal on the coin's rim. And these cud errors from 2012 D can easily reach values around $6 when strong, visually attractive, and well preserved, especially when the cud forms a distinctive shape that makes the coin unusual and eye-catching to collectors who enjoy such unique structural misformations. And now let's move to double dies, a category that fascinates collectors due to the dramatic nature of true doubling, though genuine double die errors have become less common in modern years due to improvements in minting technology. Yet minor doubling has been observed in certain 2012 D cents where small doubled elements appear on letters, numbers, or design features, and although most examples from 2012 D are light hub doubling or minor shift doubling that doesn't command huge premiums, well-defined doubling can still increase value significantly, especially among collectors specializing in modern double dies, and while not every double die 2012 D cent will reach the $6 mark, clear and dramatic examples in high grade absolutely can, showing that even moderate doubling on a modern coin has strong demand. And speaking of striking issues, another major error type to consider is the broad strike error, which occurs when the coin is struck without the retaining collar that normally contains the metal and gives the coin its perfectly circular shape and milled rim, and without this collar, the metal expands outward, creating a broader, flatter coin with smoothed edges and slightly stretched details. And broad strikes from 2012D are visually obvious and appealing to collectors, and well-defined examples free of severe post-mint damage can fetch around $6, especially when the surfaces remain clean and the expansion is symmetrical, giving the coin an attractive, unmistakable error appearance, and similar to broad strikes, partial collar errors, also known as railroad rim errors, occur when the planchet is only partially seated in the striking collar, causing part of the rim to appear normal while the other part looks expanded or flanged. And these partial collar errors can increase value depending on severity, and strong partial collar examples from 2012D can contribute to the $6 valuation, especially when the error is dramatic, clean, and visually appealing. And now we arrive at the category of planchet errors such as clipped planchets, which occur when the metal strip used to create blanks overlaps during punching, causing blanks to be cut with missing crescent-shaped or straight-cut sections, leaving the finished coin with a portion missing. And clipped planchets from 2012D are collectible, especially when the clip is large, distinct, and accompanied by the Blakesley effect, a weakened rim opposite the clip that helps verify authenticity, and when these features are present in good condition, they can easily push the value to around $6 or more depending on severity. But the planchet error category also includes lamination errors, where impurities or bonding issues in the metal cause the surface layer to peel, flake, or split, revealing underlying metal and creating dramatic cracks or raised layers on the coin's surface, and lamination errors on zinc cents like the 2012D can be especially dramatic because the thin copper plating sometimes separates in sheets or chunks, creating unusual textures and missing copper areas that collectors find visually compelling, and depending on severity, lamination errors can bring several dollars, and dramatic ones can contribute to that $6 valuation range, especially when the lamination appears on the obverse portrait or reverse shield, increasing its visual impact and desirability. And now we turn toward struck-through errors, which occur when foreign material becomes trapped between the die and planchet during striking, leaving behind impressions, indentations, or missing details where the object blocked the die, and these struck-through errors can involve fabric fibers, grease, metal shavings, wooden splinters, wires, or even pieces of other planchets, and grease-filled die errors are the most common, causing letters or parts of the design to appear faint, missing, or smoothed out. And while minor grease strikes are common and inexpensive, dramatic struck-through errors that alter large parts of the design can command multi-dollar premiums and push the coin into that $6 category, especially when the struck-through object left a clearly visible indentation or shape that makes the coin unique. And now let's discuss plating errors, which occur frequently on post-1982 zinc cores due to the delicate copper plating process, and one of the most significant plating errors is the plating bubble, where trapped gas between the zinc core and copper plating creates raised blisters, bumps, or balloon-like distortions on the coin's surface, and when these bubbles are large, dramatic, and well-preserved, they are highly collectible. And large plating bubbles on 2012D cents, especially those on Lincoln's cheek, jaw, or forehead, can reach multi-dollar values and contribute to that $6 range, especially if the bubble has a unique shape or sits prominently on the design. And more dramatic than plating bubbles are exposed zinc core errors, where the copper plating fails or splits open during striking, revealing the silver-colored zinc underneath, and these exposed zinc areas can be irregular, jagged, or patch-like. And collectors enjoy dramatic versions of this error because they reveal the structural composition of the coin, and depending on the severity and placement, such errors can also reach the $6 value range. Next, 2023 1-cent USA coin. Today we are exploring a story that sounds almost unbelievable at first glance, the tale of a simple modern 2023 1-cent coin that has become worth not just a little bit more than face value, but up to $5 whole because of a fascinating combination of errors, tiny minting flaws, surprising imperfections, and production anomalies that together create a coin far more valuable than most collectors could ever imagine when they think about the newest pennies in circulation. And as we journey through the possibilities and error types that give the 2023 1-cent coin this premium value, we will unfold layer upon layer of how the minting process works, how mistakes occur, how collectors evaluate rarity, why certain modern errors suddenly spike in demand, and what specific features you should keep an eye out for the next time you check your 2023 pennies. Because believe it or not, the smallest variations can turn an ordinary coin into something worth significant money, and with millions of people handling coins daily, most of them never realize that even freshly minted cents can hide errors that go unnoticed by the general public, but not by dedicated numismatists who know just how quickly the market reacts when an error is discovered, especially in such a new coin where the mint often aims for perfection but still occasionally produces misalignments, doubled areas, die cracks, plating issues, and other imperfections that make these coins desirable to collectors who love modern era varieties. So let's begin by understanding the context of the 2023 1-cent coin itself, produced during a period when the U.S. Mint was still using the copper-plated zinc composition introduced decades earlier, a composition known for showing certain types of errors more dramatically than older bronze cents, particularly plating blisters, split plating, zinc rot exposure, die deterioration doubling, and a wide range of minor yet fascinating irregularities, and one of the most compelling reasons the 2023 penny can reach values around $5 for certain examples is the emergence of these plating issues that occur during the bonding of the thin copper layer to the zinc core, and even though the mint strives to ensure stability and uniformity, the speed of high-volume production means imperfections inevitably appear, resulting in bubbles under the copper surface, tiny raised spots, ripples, or sometimes exposed zinc areas which collectors classify as errors when they occur prominently rather than as normal wear, and in the world of error collecting the most dramatic examples of these plating problems immediately rise in value because they stand out visually and can be easily identified even by beginners, increasing market demand and making well-preserved 2023 pennies with strong plating errors worth several dollars each, far beyond face value. And then we move to another fascinating category, die cracks and die chips, which form when the minting die begins to wear down or develop tiny fractures, causing raised lines or blobs of metal to appear on the finished coin, commonly seen near Lincoln's eye, beard, coat, the date, or the memorial shield on the reverse, and in 2023 pennies the shield design provides many locations where die cracks can appear dramatically, creating collectible varieties that often sell for multiple dollars depending on the size and placement of the crack, with some forming what collectors call extra spikes, extra bars, or even dramatic radial cracks that stretch into the fields of the coin, and in some cases these anomalies appear on thousands of coins while in other cases just a small batch is affected, and when that happens scarcity drives the price upward, especially when collectors seek to document and categorize all known 2023 shield cent era varieties, making any unusual crack or chip a potential small treasure rather than ordinary pocket change. And another major contributor to the rising value of certain 2023 pennies is die deterioration doubling, sometimes mistaken for the more dramatic double die varieties but still valuable when pronounced, causing areas such as the lettering, the date, the motto, or reverse inscriptions to appear slightly doubled, spread, or distorted due to worn dies striking coins repeatedly. And because the mint produces millions of coins at high speed, deteriorated dies can create thousands of noticeably doubled coins before being replaced, meaning examples with strong doubling remain desirable, especially when collectors seek early die-state examples with crisp details that stand apart from the normal strikes, and these too can fetch several dollars when the doubling is bold, especially in online marketplaces where buyers love adding modern-era varieties to their collections. And then we must also explore off-center strikes, possibly one of the most visually dramatic error types that can make a 2023 penny instantly worth much more, and even minor off-center shifts of just a few percent create a premium, though major shifts of 20% or more are the true gems, with the date still visible being extremely desirable because it verifies the year and allows collectors to classify the error precisely, and though such extreme examples are rare for modern pennies due to improved quality control, occasional slips still occur, and when a 2023 penny is struck off-center significantly it can easily be worth far more than $5 depending on severity and condition, further driving up interest in searching through rolls and bags for such mistakes, because the thrill of finding a dramatically off-center modern coin encourages many collectors and treasure hunters to keep searching, hoping for that rare misalignment, and even if these coins are less common in modern production, the few that slip through become instant conversation pieces and sell quickly among collectors who love visually striking anomalies. And another interesting category worth discussing is feet or finger scrapes or damage marks that occur at the mint before the coin is fully struck, leaving raised or incuse patterns that look like lines or grooves across the surface, and when these occur clearly and systematically rather than through post-mint damage, they are categorized as legitimate mint errors and can increase value, especially when they do not obscure important design features, and some 2023 pennies have been documented with such errors, leading collectors to classify them and assign premiums depending on visibility, rarity, and preservation. And then we also must consider broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the collar that normally contains the metal expansion, producing a wider, flatter coin that still retains the full design but appears unusually large and misshapen, and though rare, modern broad strikes are extremely popular among enthusiasts, often selling for several dollars or more even when coming from newer years like 2023, and then there are strike-through errors, among the most fascinating types of mint errors because they occur when a foreign object or debris becomes trapped between the die and planchet during the strike, creating an impression of whatever was in the way, such as thread, grease, metal filings, or other materials, resulting in strange shapes or missing design elements that make the coin a true one-of-a-kind collectible. And because 2023 pennies are produced in such high numbers, occasional debris gets into the striking area and creates these error coins, which collectors eagerly seek out because they represent unique varieties that display irregular textures or indented areas, and depending on the severity a strike-through error on a 2023 penny can easily lift the value to several dollars or more, especially when the object's imprint is clearly visible and unusual, and then we should not overlook the possibility of misaligned dies, where the hammer die strikes slightly off target causing one side of the coin to shift relative to the rim, creating thicker or thinner rim borders on different sides, and those subtle, strong misalignments can be worth a premium when they affect the coin noticeably, and because the minting machines occasionally fall out of perfect calibration, these anomalies appear sporadically throughout the production run, making well-preserved examples from 2023 desirable to collectors who enjoy identifying unusual striking characteristics. And then we turn to another category known as wrong planchet errors, extremely rare but always exciting, occurring when a 1-cent die accidentally strikes a planchet intended for another denomination such as a dime or nickel, resulting in a drastically incorrect final product that can be worth hundreds or thousands depending on metal composition and rarity. And although these are exceedingly rare in modern mints, the possibility still fascinates collectors, prompting them to check 2023 pennies for unusual weight, thickness, color, or diameter differences, just in case they have found an extraordinary wrong planchet strike that could be worth far more than $5, though even minor deviations in color or sheen can draw interest from error enthusiasts. And then another subtle but valuable error is known as a doubled ear variety, where Lincoln's ear appears to have a duplicate outline due to die anomalies. Next, 1995 1-cent USA coin. Today's journey is all about the fascinating 1995 1-cent coin, a coin that many people overlook because they assume that something minted in the mid-1990s could never be worth more than face value, yet surprisingly certain 1995 pennies can reach prices around $4 because of important errors, subtle mistakes, interesting minting defects, and collectible variations that set them apart from the millions of ordinary examples still floating around in circulation. And as we begin exploring these details, possibilities, and hidden characteristics that increase the value of a 1995 penny, you'll see that even a coin nearly 3 decades old can still hold unexpected worth if it carries the right kind of imperfections, and this entire breakdown will help you understand why collectors are willing to pay a premium, what you should be looking for, how these errors happened, and what makes 1995 such an interesting year for variety hunters across the numismatic world, especially because this year features one of the most talked about errors in modern Lincoln cent history along with several lesser known but still valuable mistakes that together create a strong collector market where a small copper-plated zinc cent can suddenly become worth real money. And as we explore these concepts, remember that each error tells a miniature story of what happened inside the minting machinery and why certain coins slipped out with remarkable features that make them worth more today. Because while most coins are struck cleanly and uniformly, every once in a while the minting process creates something special, whether through mechanical deterioration, die adjustments, off-center pressure, misalignments, or even the accidental presence of foreign debris, and these are the elements that give 1995 pennies their charm, their appeal, and their potential $4 value when preserved well enough and when the errors are dramatic enough to catch a collector's attention. So let's begin with the most famous error associated with this year, the 1995 double die obverse, a coin known for years as one of the strongest modern double die varieties, although many people misunderstand its appearance, thinking it has the extreme doubling seen in older double die classics. But instead what makes this variety interesting is the noticeable doubling, especially on the inscription "In God We Trust" and sometimes on Liberty, where the letters appear shadowed or stretched due to die misalignment during the hubbing process. And while the strongest variety from Philadelphia is not the same as older dramatic double dies like those from 1955 or 1972, it still carries significant collector interest, and in top condition. Even minor versions of this double die can reach several dollars and provide the key reason many collectors look closely at 1995 pennies even today. But beyond the famous double die, there are many other types of valuable errors that can boost a 1995 penny's price to $4, starting with die cracks and die chips that form on aging dies as they begin to fracture or crumble under repeated pressure, creating raised metal lines or blobs on the finished coins. And 1995 pennies frequently show chips around Lincoln's bowtie, beard, coat, and sometimes above the date, and larger, more distinct die chips can command increasing premiums, especially when they have recognizable shapes or appear dramatically enlarged due to advanced die deterioration. And then we move to another major category, repunched mint marks for the 1995 D pennies, because even though the single squeeze hubbing method was still not fully standardized at the time, repunched mint marks can still be found in some examples, where the D appears doubled, shadowed, or slightly misaligned due to the hand punching process used in earlier years and sometimes still evident in transitional periods. And although small, these RPM errors can push value upward when sharp and clear, especially in high-grade uncirculated examples. And then we have the famous die deterioration doubling phenomenon, which occurs not from hub doubling but from worn striking dies that begin to blur or distort letters and numbers due to excessive use, producing spread out, mushy, or slightly duplicate-looking details that some collectors prize for their distinctiveness. And in 1995 this effect is particularly visible on some cent dies that were pushed to their operational limits, creating noticeable doubling on Liberty or the motto, making certain examples worth several dollars when found in sharp condition with minimal wear. And another popular type of error for this year is off-center strikes, where the planchet was not perfectly positioned during the strike, producing a coin with part of its design shifted or missing on one side. And even though off-center errors can appear in any year, 1995 off-center examples with clear dates and mint marks are especially desirable because collectors love being able to identify the year of an off-center strike, and mild off-center coins might raise value to a few dollars, but more dramatic ones with 10%, 20%, or even 30% off-center alignment can quickly exceed the typical $4 range depending on condition. And while minor shifts might only add slight value, dramatic off-center strikes turn a simple penny into a visually striking collectible. And we also see broad strike errors in 1995 pennies, where the collar failed to hold the planchet tightly, allowing the metal to expand outward during the strike, resulting in a wider, flatter coin without a proper rim. And even moderate broad strikes can be worth multiple dollars, while dramatic ones get even more attention due to their unusual shape. And since broad strikes often preserve the design fully but spread out, collectors enjoy them for their eye-catching appearance and distinctiveness compared to normal pennies. And then we have clipped planchet errors, where a curved or straight portion of the planchet is missing due to metal strip misfeeds during blank cutting. And 1995 pennies with clear clips, especially curved ones with a fishtail effect on the opposite side, can easily become $4 items when clean, original, and unmistakably mint-made. And then there's the fascinating category of strike-through errors, where foreign material gets between the die and planchet during the moment of striking, leaving behind unusual impressions such as cloth patterns, wire shapes, pieces of metal scrapes, small fibers, or even grease fills which cause missing or faded design elements. And 1995 pennies with strong strike-through patterns often draw collector interest, especially if the object left a crisp, unusual, and easily recognizable mark. And grease-filled dies are particularly common in 1995, causing missing letters, faded inscriptions, or weak design areas that many collectors find interesting when the effect is strong. And these grease-fill errors can push a penny's value up when they significantly alter the appearance of words like Liberty, or the motto, or even parts of Lincoln's face. And then another interesting group is misaligned die strikes, where one die, usually the hammer die, strikes slightly off-center, causing one side of the coin to have a thicker rim and the other side to appear thinner, and while slight misalignment is common, major misalignment that still leaves the opposite side properly centered is considered a collectible error, and 1995 pennies with noticeable misalignments can sell for multiple dollars depending on severity, especially when the wobble-like effect on the rim is dramatic. And then we can't ignore the possibility of wrong planchet errors which occur when a 1-cent die accidentally strikes a blank intended for another coin, such as a dime planchet or even foreign coin stock, resulting in incorrect weight, size, or color, and although rare, 1995 wrong planchet errors do exist and can reach far beyond the $4 mark into hundreds depending on the metal and rarity, but even slight variations in weight or thickness can intrigue collectors searching for unusual mint experiments or misfeeds. And then we explore die polishing lines, often mistaken for scratches but actually raised lines formed when mint workers polish the die to remove clash marks or extend die life. And dramatic polishing lines can sometimes remove small details of the design or reshape certain elements, making the coin unique and sometimes worth more, particularly when the lines form dramatic patterns that collectors call zebra stripes or radial rays. And speaking of die clashes, 1995 pennies also show examples of clash marks where the obverse and reverse dies collided without a planchet between them, leaving faint traces of one design transferred onto the opposite die surface, and clashed die coins displaying ghost-like impressions from the reverse shield or Lincoln's profile can draw collector interest, especially when the marks are strong and recognizable. And then there are double-struck errors where the coin is struck more than once in different positions, creating overlapping outlines, distorted design elements, or partial double images, and these errors instantly attract collectors. Last 2003 D1 cent USA coin. Today as we go deep into another incredible journey through the world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and surprising minting mistakes that often go unnoticed in everyday pocket change. And in this video we are exploring one of the most interesting modern pennies that many people overlook because they assume that coins from the early 2000s are too new to carry any significant value, yet the truth is that even a coin like the 2003 D1 cent from the Denver Mint can be worth up to $3 or even slightly more if it contains important errors, dramatic mistakes, or striking anomalies that occurred during the minting process. And today we are going to break down all the key factors that make this humble copper-plated zinc coin far more valuable than most people realize, exploring the errors that increase its price, the minting conditions that cause these issues, the types of varieties you should be looking for, and the reasons collectors continue searching through change, coin rolls, and forgotten jars in hopes of finding these hidden treasures. Because while the 2003 D penny is extremely common in its normal form, the error varieties from this year carry strong interest, especially when they showcase visible, dramatic, and easily recognizable features that stand out to collectors and enthusiasts who understand the subtle world of minting mistakes. And to begin this deep exploration we first acknowledge that the Denver Mint in 2003 produced billions of pennies, and whenever such massive production scales occur, mistakes inevitably slip through, and those mistakes, when preserved or detected early, transform ordinary coins into valuable collectibles that can fetch more than their face value. And in the case of the 2003 D penny, many of these errors revolve around die deterioration, mechanical doubling, die cracks, die chips, misaligned die strikes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, strike-through errors, and more rare types such as double strikes, rotated dies, and even wrong planchet strikes which occur occasionally in high-volume production environments. And since this is a year where the minting machinery was working under immense pressure to maintain output, a variety of small but significant imperfections made their way into circulation, providing the basis for the collector market that values these coins today at around $3 depending on condition, severity, and rarity. So let's begin unpacking each type of error and what makes it so valuable, starting with die chips, one of the most common and visually distinctive errors seen on 2003 D pennies, because as the die ages, tiny pieces of metal can break off from high pressure points, leaving raised blobs or bumps on the finished coin. And on 2003 D pennies, these chips frequently appear on Lincoln's bowtie, eyes, hairline, corners of the memorial building on the reverse, and sometimes even around the mint mark or date. And the larger the chip, the more valuable the coin becomes, because large, dramatic die chips are far more collectible than tiny, barely noticeable ones, and some 2003 cents feature chips so large on the Lincoln Memorial columns that entire sections of the building look swollen or melted, making the coin instantly more desirable. And next we move to die cracks, another common but interesting error from this year, caused by the die developing fractures due to stress, temperature changes, or repeated use, and these cracks strike through the design of the coin, leaving raised lines that can stretch across Lincoln's face, through the lettering, or even across the reverse structure, and the placement, length, and visibility of the die crack all influence its value, and the most dramatic examples create long, jagged lines that collectors call lightning cracks because of their appearance. And these are often sold for several dollars when preserved in nice condition. And then we go into die deterioration doubling, which occurs when dies wear down from heavy use and begin producing coins with distorted, spread out lettering, especially around the date, mint mark, Liberty, and the motto. And although this type of doubling is not as valuable as true double die errors, it still catches collector interest when the effect is strong, bold, or unusual, and many 2003 pennies exhibit clear deterioration doubling that can push value upward depending on how dramatic the deformation is. Especially when found in uncirculated condition with strong cartwheel luster, because collectors appreciate sharply preserved errors that reveal the flaws in the minting tools. And then there is another important category of errors from this year, mechanical doubling, sometimes called strike doubling, which occurs not during hubbing but during the striking process itself, when loose mechanical components cause the design to shift or bounce, creating a flattened, shelf-like doubling around letters and numbers. And while mechanical doubling is far less valuable than hub doubling, it still can add collector interest when the doubling is heavy, widespread, or visually striking. And 2003 pennies are known for developing mechanical doubling in certain die pairs, particularly around Liberty and the date, giving collectors yet another reason to examine their coins closely. And moving forward we encounter misaligned die strikes, where the hammer die is slightly out of position, causing the image on one side of the coin to appear shifted upward, downward, or sideways while the opposite side remains properly centered. And mild misalignment is common, but major misalignment where the rim becomes noticeably uneven or extremely thick on one side turns the coin into a collectible error that can fetch values around $3 or more. And the 2003 penny has several documented examples of significant misalignment that make collectors eager to find them in coin rolls. And now we arrive at off-center strike errors, which always attract collector attention because they are instantly recognizable and visually dramatic, caused when the planchet fails to enter the striking chamber in perfect alignment, resulting in part of the design missing. And depending on the percentage of offset, value can increase substantially, especially when the date remains fully visible, because collectors want off-center coins that allow them to identify the year and mint mark. And 2003 pennies with even minor off-center strikes can reach several dollars, while more dramatic ones with 10%, 20%, or even 30% off-center alignment can go much higher, making them extremely desirable. And in addition to off-center strikes we have broad strike errors, which occur when the collar fails to hold the coin in place during striking, causing the planchet to expand outward and create a wider, flatter coin with no fully defined rim. And 2003 pennies with broad strike errors often display beautifully stretched appearances that collectors enjoy, and these coins can easily reach prices around $3 depending on severity and condition. And then there are clipped planchet errors, which occur before the coin is even struck when the metal strip used to cut blanks is misfed or improperly aligned, causing blanks to be cut with missing sections, resulting in coins with curved, straight, or ragged clips. And a clean, authentic curved clip on a 2003 penny can immediately push its value to several dollars, especially when the opposing side shows the characteristic fishtailing effect where the metal flow reacts to the missing portion. And another popular type of error from the 2003 penny is the strike-through error, where a foreign object becomes trapped between the die and planchet during striking, leaving behind a unique imprint or causing portions of the design to be missing. And these foreign materials can include grease, fibers, debris, wire, fragments of tools, or even stray metal filings. And 2003 pennies often show grease-filled die errors where lettering, numbers, or parts of the design appear faint, missing, or completely absent. And when this happens dramatically, such as a missing letter in Liberty or a faded portion of the memorial, collectors find the coin far more intriguing and valuable because it reflects a striking mistake in the minting process. And strike-through errors with recognizable shapes, patterns, or textures can fetch even more. Especially when the impression is deep and distinct. And now we move toward double-struck errors, which are far rarer but extremely collectible, occurring when the coin is struck more than once and in different positions or rotations, creating overlapping images, distorted elements, and unusual visual effects that are immediately identifiable. And a double-struck 2003 D penny can easily exceed the typical $3 range and go much higher, but even mild double strikes still attract interest. Because they represent clear mint-made errors. And then we have rotated die errors, where the obverse and reverse dies are not aligned at the correct 180-degree rotation, causing the reverse design to appear rotated when the coin is flipped. And while small rotations may not add much value, dramatic rotations of 45 degrees, 90 degrees, or more make the coin far more valuable because such errors are uncommon and extremely distinctive, and collectors love rotated dies for their novelty and visual uniqueness, especially in modern pennies.